Imagine walking through the streets of ancient Athens. You are surrounded by the pinnacle of human civilization, gorgeous marble architecture, wealthy elites in pristine white robes, and brilliant minds discussing politics. But as you turn a corner into the crowded marketplace, you see a large, cracked clay wine barrel resting on its side in the dirt. Inside it lives a man. He owns absolutely nothing. He wears a single, ragged cloak. He begs for his food, and he routinely insults the most powerful politicians in the world to their faces. His name was Diogenes of Sinope. While other philosophers like Plato and Aristotle sat in beautiful, restricted academies debating the abstract meaning of virtue, Diogenes decided to live it. He rejected money, power, manners, and civilization itself, choosing to live exactly like a stray dog. He was history's first cynic, a word that literally translates from ancient Greek to dog-like. Most people thought he was completely insane. Plato famously described him as Socrates gone mad. But Diogenes wasn't crazy. He was on a radical, lifelong mission to expose the absolute absurdity, hypocrisy, and fake nature of human society. How did a homeless man living in a barrel become one of the most respected and feared minds in ancient history? And what can his wild, shocking life teach us about true freedom today? Before he was a famous philosopher, Diogenes was actually a criminal, or at least the son of one. Born in the city of Sinope, his father ran the local mint. At some point, Diogenes and his father became involved in a massive scandal involving the defacement and counterfeiting of the city's silver coins. The punishment was swift and brutal. Diogenes was stripped of his citizenship, his wealth, and was permanently exiled from his homeland. He arrived in Athens with absolutely nothing to his name. For most people, this would be the end of their life. But for Diogenes, it was a grand awakening. He looked at his exile not as a curse, but as a liberation. He realized that all the things society told him he needed to be happy, status, a big house, fancy clothes, and a good reputation, were actually invisible chains holding his soul captive. To learn how to survive, Diogenes didn't look to other humans. He looked to nature. He watched a mouse running through the dirt. The mouse didn't care about a bed, it didn't fear the dark, and it didn't stress about money. It just existed. Diogenes thought, if a mouse can be perfectly happy with nothing, why can't a human? He immediately threw away almost all of his possessions. He kept only a single rough cloak to protect him from the weather, a walking stick, and a small wooden bowl for food. But one day, he saw a young peasant boy drinking water out of a river, using nothing but his bare hands. Diogenes shook his head, laughed at himself, and threw his wooden bowl into the river, shouting, "A child has beaten me in simplicity." With no home, Diogenes claimed a massive discarded clay storage jar, a pythos in the middle of the Athenian marketplace, as his bedroom. From this barrel, he began his career as history's ultimate philosophical troll. His favorite target? Plato. Plato was the golden boy of Athenian philosophy, loved by the wealthy elite. One day, Plato's academy attempted to come up with the perfect, definitions-based philosophical description of a human being. After much debate, they proudly announced their definition. A human being is a featherless biped. When Diogenes heard this, he decided to perform a live critique. He went to the market, bought a live chicken, and plucked every single feather off of it. He then walked straight into Plato's academy during a lecture, threw the naked, squawking chicken onto the floor in front of everyone, and announced, "Behold, I have brought you Plato's man." The academy was utterly humiliated. They immediately had to change their official definition to a featherless biped with broad, flat nails. Diogenes also despised how people hid behind polite manners while doing corrupt things. He used to walk through the bright, sun-drenched streets of Athens holding a lit lantern up to people's faces in broad daylight. When confused citizens asked him what on earth he was doing, Diogenes would sigh and say, "I am just looking for an honest man." He never found one. Eventually, Diogenes was captured by pirates and sold into slavery in the city of Corinth. When the auctioneer asked him what skills he possessed, Diogenes bluntly replied, "I know how to govern men. Sell me to someone who needs a master." A wealthy man bought him to tutor his children, and Diogenes lived out the rest of his days in Corinth. It was here that the most famous meeting in philosophical history took place. Alexander the Great, the young king who was currently conquering the entire known world, arrived in Corinth. Everyone rushed to praise the legendary king, except Diogenes, who stayed in his spot on the grass, sunbathing. Curious and amused, Alexander decided to visit the strange philosopher himself. Alexander stood over the homeless man, surrounded by his elite guards and generals. The king, wanting to show his immense generosity, looked down at Diogenes and said, "I am Alexander the Great. Ask of me any favor you wish, and I shall grant it to you." The crowd held their breath. Diogenes could have asked for a palace, heaps of gold, or his freedom. Instead, Diogenes didn't even look up. He just squinted into the sun and replied, "Yes, stand a little out of my sun." The guards were furious and wanted to execute him on the spot, but Alexander stopped them. He was utterly awestruck by a man who cared so little for earthly power. As Alexander walked away, he turned to his generals and muttered a phrase that would echo through history. "If I were not Alexander, I would wish to be Diogenes." Diogenes died around 323 BC, allegedly on the exact same day as Alexander the Great. Alexander died in a golden palace, surrounded by an empire he conquered but could never fully satisfy. Diogenes died in the dirt, owning absolutely nothing, yet completely at peace. The citizens of Corinth deeply loved him for his radical honesty. They buried him with honors and built a marble monument of a dog to mark his grave, symbolizing his fierce protective loyalty to the truth. The ultimate lesson of Diogenes' wild life is that true freedom is not the ability to buy or control everything around you. True freedom is needing nothing at all. He proved that society's expectations are a game you do not have to play, and that anxiety usually stems from chasing artificial things that do not actually matter to the human soul, which leaves us with a haunting question to ask ourselves. In a modern world completely obsessed with status, wealth, and likes on a screen, are we actually freer than the man who lived in a barrel, or are we just better dressed?